After that ad for the GMB, we're going to move swiftly on to motion number 11. Can the mover for motion number 11 in the name of NASUWT? Thank you. Sorry, Justin.
Thank you, Justin McCampbell, NASUWT. Comrades, I bring this motion to you to highlight the continuing sectarian nature of education in Northern Ireland and how vested interests have manipulated the make-up of our education authority to exclude any representation from trade unions or anyone else from the community sector. Who are the vested interests who have carved up power in education in Northern Ireland? Two groups, the churches and the academic selection lobby. When the already imperfect legislation went before Stormont, this body was to have 20 members, including 4 community representatives. Public advertisements had been placed and applications had been received, including from many trade unionists, when a last-minute amendment to the legislation was passed in Stormont, removing these places and replacing them with representatives of the Irish medium sector, the integrated sector, the controlled grammar schools, and the voluntary grammar schools. And because controlled schools are controlled by the trustees of the main Protestant churches, an extra place, of course, had to be created for the Catholic Council for Maintained Schools. This is a public body with no community representation. In effect, trade unionists, teacher training colleges, academics, assessment bodies, the voluntary sector, parents, community groups are permanently excluded from representation. Let me describe the current makeup of a total membership of 21, 1 chair, 8 politicians. Who ever heard of 8 politicians? Who ever heard of politicians making themselves a minority? 4 persons nominated by the Transferry Representatives Council. Now, this is the politically correct way in Northern Ireland of saying 4 Protestants. 4 persons nominated by the Northern Ireland Commission for Catholic Education. Politically correct way of saying there's the 4 Catholic church places. 1 Irish medium, I fully support that. And 1 integrated, again, no issues there. 1 person representing the interests of the controlled grammar schools. This is our politically correct way of saying this is the middle class Protestants. 1 person representing the interests of the voluntary grammar schools. This body is in reality a political lobby group whose sole purpose is to maintain academic selection and entrench the middle class nature of the grammar school system. One of the worst aspects of the grammar school sector having representation on the Education Authority is that the Education Authority has no remit over the grammar school sector, but the grammar school representatives will be deciding on policy for every other type of school. These people fought to the bitter end to ensure that individual grammar schools would remain as individual employing authorities. They have ensured that they individually have the right to set terms and conditions for their non-teaching staff. The grammar sector, with the support of right-wing politicians, have ensured that an all-encompassing Education and Skills Authority did not get off the ground. They fought the battle to the right to opt out of agreed terms and conditions for staff and to ensure that they had the right to continue with academic selection for allocating pupil places at their schools. I know not everyone here may have supported the establishment of the ESA, but this is not the focus of this motion. This motion is about rejecting the sectarian carve-up of the administration of education in the North. It is about rejecting the bizarre situation where the churches have more representatives on the board of this authority than the politicians who are meant to hold the board to account on behalf of us, the public who voted for them, or not voted for them in some cases. It is about rejecting the idea that we need separate Catholic and Protestant bodies to run our schools. It is about accountability. It is fundamentally unfair that representatives of voluntary grammars will be able to influence decisions affecting every other school in Northern Ireland, despite having ensured that they are not under the control or influence of this body themselves. They cannot have it both ways. They should be 100% in or 100% out. It is about rejecting a body which entrenches class divisions, be giving a voice to those groups who exist only to support academic selection. Vote for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Is there a second for the motion? Thank you.
Teresa Graham, NASUWT, to second the motion. Colleagues, the education system in Northern Ireland is not entirely, but is mostly divided on religious grounds. Poll after poll shows that most people are not happy with this situation. Integrated education in Northern Ireland has been put on the back burner, and secular education has always been a non-starter. But it should not be like this. It is a reflection of the failure of our politicians in Northern Ireland that when an attempt was made to subsume the role of the body responsible for Catholic schools into a wider Education and Skills Authority, the politicians ended up backing a system that not only retained that body, but created a Protestant body for schools as well. The legislation setting up the Education Authority placed an onus on it to promote shared education. I believe that trade union and community representatives would have held the Education Authority to account on this issue. For let's face it, no one else on the Education Authority will have any interest in doing so. This is an issue that affects all of us in this island, as we must make serious efforts to ensure the growth of integrated and shared education in Northern Ireland, or we will set the prospect of genuine reconciliation back further, with implications for the whole island. Promoting shared education should not be the preserve of some benevolent American philanthropist, but should involve all involved in education. This is not essentially a debate about budget cuts. However, the Education Authority will be the means by which cuts to schools and essential services for young people will be delivered, so we can fight these cuts together. I accept that the original Education and Skills Authority was not perfect, but what we have now in the Education Authority is a body that is already badly in need of reform. We must send a message to our politicians that the message they have sent to the public through the creation of the Education Authority is that, primarily, education is a matter for church and not a matter for state. The Northern Ireland Executive must go back to the drawing board and create a public body for education that reflects the public. Create a body that guarantees representation for workers, parents and the wider community. Create a body to end division, not entrench it. Create a body which ends academic selection, not promote it. Create a body which ends the rights of individual schools to set their own terms and conditions for workers, and stop such schools from promoting such ideas within an educational authority, and hence to the Northern Ireland Executive, where, unfortunately, there is always a willingness among some politicians to listen to a gospel that preaches lower pay and poor conditions as a good message. Colleagues, I urge you to vote for this motion.
Thank you very much. Is there any speakers to motion 11? There is one speaker. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
President. Conference, Brian Booth on behalf of NIPSA to seek remission of motion number 11. Brothers and sisters, the reason we seek remission is due to the second sentence in the motion, which states, Conference believes that the rejection of an all-embracing Education and Skills Authority represents a sadly missed opportunity. My union does not believe that the formation of an Education and Skills Authority will resolve or create anything. Rather, we believe the formation of ESA will lead to an opportunity for the likes of Gavin Boyd, the Minister, and the employers to introduce widespread centralisation and become a vehicle to introduce further swingeing cuts in service and jobs for our members. Just last Friday, there was an announcement of hundreds of job losses in education in the North in schools. Conference, I would ask NASUWT to consider accepting remission and allow this motion to be kicked back to the Executive Committee to take out only this one line and implement the terms of the rest of the motion. The removal of this line, this sentence, does not affect the terms of the motion in any way. So, brothers and sisters, Don't send the wrong signal to Gavin Boyd, to the Minister, to the Employers Conference. Remit this motion. Thanks.
Is there a second for the motion to remit?
Madam President, Chairman. I'm not seconding.
Permission, you're seconding
No, I'm
permission.
speaking to the motion.
Speaking to the motion. Is there a second for the remission motion? Formally seconded.
Are you voting that?
No, not yet. No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. The establishment of the Education Authority in the North is, as has been described in the motion, a matter of profound regret. The INTO had wanted to see the original, that is the 2008 version of ESA established, the Education and Skills Authority. Unfortunately, a failure to achieve agreement amongst the executive parties at Stormont on the proposal made that, the creation of a single employing authority, impossible. The real regret here is that the reality of 5 years of administrative paralysis that resulted from the political failure. Over these years, INTO and our colleagues in the other unions representing workers in the education sector were subjected to endless prevarication on the part of the Department of Education and employers, who were unwilling to make decisions in advance of the creation of what we were led to believe to be a single education authority and employer for all. EA is not that, and our members have suffered as a result. The department have made shared education and a more inclusive future harder to realise by allowing the existing plethora of education employers to continue to exist, and indeed it has created a further advisory body for the controlled sector. My colleague explained the Northern Code for Controlled. These bodies, alongside a funding mechanism for schools based on pupils per schools, places our schools and colleges in a position where they are forced to compete with each other for pupils against the backdrop of parental choice. All of this makes the achievement of inclusivity and a shared future much more difficult to achieve than it is already. EA has a further weakness. Trade union representation on the board of EA was summarily dispensed with by the Department of Education in order to allow political parties greater representation. We lost 2 seats allocated to us in the initial legislation, as did the community sector. The result has been the absence of any trade union representatives of the almost 50,000 employees in this sector on the board. Not only is this anti-democratic, but it falls some way short of the department's stated position that it wishes to work in partnership with the union. Like so much of our work as trade unionists in the North, our administration at Stormont is only ever prepared to engage meaningfully with the trade unions when the future of the political institutions themselves are under threat. Where this leaves us is at a crossroads. We have a decision to make. Do we accept the status quo of an EA that is already only months into its existence, displaying significant structural weakness? Firstly, the issue of the makeup of the board, which has been dealt with, and secondly, the fact that it has a corporate board, but in effect, the daily running of the education sector remains in the hands of 3 regional directors of EA, whom the board have little or no say over. Really, all EA appears to have achieved is to insert several more layers of bureaucracy and reduce what was 5 education and library boards to 3. A triumph of resource management and planning conceived and executed by the disciples of Sir Humphrey.
Time.
1 minute. As trade unionists, we must continue to challenge and highlight the ineffectual and bureaucratic nature of EA. Our challenge must be accompanied with alternative proposals, not only for how education system is to be administered, but more importantly, we must begin by forcing the political class and society in general to engage with us in a conversation as to what it is we want our education system to do. To reference Tom Neary from this morning, we are the people who we have been waiting for. Okay? For only when we agree what it is we want from our young people, for our young people and the lifelong learners in the system, can we move on to address the other key questions, such as how do we ensure that education is resourced sufficiently and what sort of an administrative system is needed. What is clear is that EA is not going to do any of this important work. INTO supports the motion.
Thank you. I'm giving the original movers of the motion an opportunity to reply and to see will they agree to remit the motion, which has been asked for. So you're the original mover of the motion.
Okay, we will not be remitting the motion. And my reason is mainly for not getting into the debate about ESA and not ESA. As the Speaker said, it's not, the motion is about the Education Authority. We can't pick out lines and say, in every motion to say agree or disagree. We could have, however, in the past, put down an amendment. And I think that's the way we go about it in future. If you don't like a motion, amend it.
Okay, I'm going to put the, first of all, the motion to remit to the conference. So all those in favour of remission, please show. All those against? Defeated.